Hi, I'm Diana Luke, and I have a great fascination with all things to do with psychic, medium, spiritualism, and so forth. And we thought it would be a nice idea to get some mediums to talk about their experiences. So today I'm joined by Val Williams. Now, Val, when did you first become aware of your gift?
I've actually written a book about this, which you'll be able to read the full story, but the short version is
What's the book called?
Two Worlds as One.
Okay.
When I was a child, I used to have what I now know is my voice used to tell me things. And I got in a lot of trouble because often I would say something my mother was just thinking, which often wasn't very nice, so I would get slapped for it. So little by little, I came to actually dislike and be rather frightened of what was happening in my head. So I did my best to block it out. I actually remember walking along paving slabs when I was leaving school, and another little girl's voice in my head would count them. So I thought, I'll get rid of you, I'll go on another street. But that didn't work. So all my childhood, I suppose, but I didn't like it and didn't work with it at all until I was in my 30s.
Is it because it's sort of frowned upon, or they would think that you were a bit crazy or wacky?
Well, there was mental illness in my family and still is. So I was always threatened that there would be a mental asylum waiting. But I think my mum just didn't like my truth.
So, okay, you waited until you were in your 30s before you were beginning to develop
Yes.
your gifts. Would you say, as a result of developing it rather than trying to avoid it, that your life has changed for the better?
Yes, I think so, because I think it's given me a great deal more purpose to my life. The reason I actually started developing it, my cousin was murdered when we were children, and I always knew who had killed her. And I was told to go in a church and pray for her. And my friend went to this weird place, I thought, where they talk to dead people. So I didn't go to church at the time, so I went there on a Monday afternoon, and everything just clicked into place. I heard people talking about they had voices in their head, people spoke to them and told them things, and it was true. So it just seemed the right thing to do, and it's given a lot of purpose to my life.
Yeah.
And the fact that I got help in that place, which was a spiritualist church, meant that somehow, if their voices could help me, maybe my voices could help other people, and I believe they have.
Yeah, a definite purpose. Do you think that there's any truth that people with gifts like yourself have more difficult lives?
I don't know if they have more difficult lives, but I don't know many good mediums who haven't had real problems to deal with. And I remember saying to my voice once, why has this happened to me? Why am I struggling again? And he said, so you can understand other people. And I did say I was a bit tired of understanding other people. But if you want to help people, you've got to have a real knowledge of what they're going through, I think.
Now, some people get confused about what is the difference between a psychic and a medium. Can you be both?
Yes, we cover all of that. We say every medium is psychic, but not every psychic is a medium.
What does that mean?
There's quite a difference between a psychic who can pick up from your auric field, from your own energy, and give you messages based on that. And then a medium who actually receives communication and is able to provide evidence of who is giving that communication from the spirit world.
But isn't there a problem that we have many people in society who are kind of jumping on the bandwagon and saying, I am this, I am that, they're charlatans? How does the man or the woman on the street know the difference?
Well, it's the evidence that's given that supports mediumship, and it's very hard. I think if people are out and out charlatans, they're usually found out pretty quickly. But in between a charlatan and a good medium, I think are some people who are delusional, who believe that they have good mediumship or believe voices are talking to them, and it's not always the case. And sometimes a bad psychic can convince people who don't know better that they are actually working with mediumship. And the other side of that is a lot of people would rather go to a psychic because they're a little afraid of contacting what they think are dead people. So they will go for a psychic reading. I just advise caution, and as far as I'm concerned, and when I had real evidence and I knew that the mediums were talking to my loved ones, then I would believe what was said, but otherwise I don't.
So always be a healthy skeptic, perhaps,
Yes,
to begin
I think
with.
so.
Okay.
Open heart, open mind, but yeah, a little skeptical.
And speaking with skeptics who really don't believe anything that you're saying or doing, what could you do or say that would make a difference? Would it be to give evidence?
Yes, it would. I don't actually care for people who come deliberately in a sceptical way without any open mind whatsoever. But I did many years ago do a lecture for the police down in Birmingham for a training group of police. It turned out quite funny because, well, one of the policemen, when I got there, said to me that there was a little issue, that one of the policemen in the room had been having a little fling with somebody. And could I use that? Well, I have never used mediumship to abuse it in any sense. So I said, well, I would see what I could do. And at the end of the event, I went to talk to them about whether paedophiles could be brought to justice using mediums. That was the reason all those years ago. It was over 20 years ago. And so I did my talk and they asked questions. And then at the end of it, I was thanked for my work. And I just said, oh, there's a certain person here who knows a certain young lady. And this poor policeman went purple in the face, purple. And he said, who's told you this? And I was just going to say, your friend over there. But actually a man moved in and I described him to the gentleman and told him about things from his childhood. And he just looked, he went white and he looked round and he said, there's nobody in this room knows any of that. Where did he get it from?
Yeah.
And I just said, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Now perhaps you can assess more easily where mediumship can help.
Yeah.
But there has to be evidence behind it.
Absolutely. How would you define the difference between religious and spiritual?
I think religious is just a title, actually. I think every religion has good points, good qualities. Every single religion promotes goodness. Whether people take them on, that on board is another matter. I think the fact of being spiritual is if we are here to progress, which I believe we are spiritually, we have to, if you like, put your money where your mouth is and prove it.
Fair enough, fair enough. What do you personally think happens when we die?
The soul moves on. As simple as that. I've actually had sitting many years ago, but one sitting was with a gentleman who was talking to me as he was actually dying, and the lady who received the message didn't know who I was talking about. He gave me a name and told me how he was dying, and when she got home she had a phone call to say her brother-in-law had died. She didn't put the two together, the message and the man, because the man who died was not known by that name. And a couple of days later she was at the funeral and they were talking about how he died, and it was as I said. And then it was actually when the priest or the vicar said his name, the name he had given me was his christened name, but he always used another name, so she didn't even know it. So
that's evidence.
That's evidence,
yeah.
Even as he was dying.
Yeah.
And then the soul moves forward and can progress, and we meet our loved ones again. Lovely.
Are you then, I mean, it's almost a ridiculous question, you're not frightened of your own death, I would imagine?
I'm not frightened of death, I'm frightened of the manner in which I might die, I think, like a lot of people.
It's the dying
rather
than the death.
It is.
Yeah. Can a loved one, I mean, if you knew someone who was terminally ill and you wanted them to be able to be back in touch when they do pass, are you able to set up a code between you?
People do. It doesn't always work. There's a gentleman in Denmark comes to me every time I go, and it used to be for the lottery numbers. And I
Why
said
do
to
they
him,
always say that?
I don't know. I said if I'd won the lottery, I might not be sitting here talking to you. But he and his mum did set up such a code, And I've asked this question of Spirit, why, if you've made a code, why can't you just give it? And there's no clear-cut answer on this. But I think sometimes if people get the code immediately, they'll stop looking, they'll stop investigating. And I think for a lot of people who've lost somebody as close as this gentleman to his mother, and she to him, she wants him to know that she is still around him. So whilst he needs that knowledge, she'll keep the code to herself, I think. Other times, spontaneously, it's given. I set up a code with an aunt. She died at 50 of cancer, met back in the 1980s. And I, in a silly way, set up a code with her. And it took up until 2013 to actually get that code. So
Wow.
that's a lot of years waiting,
Patience.
but I got it, yes. It's in their time, not ours.
Yeah. If someone's listening to you right now, Val, and they're thinking, I would like to be able to learn more about this, can anyone learn?
I think anybody who's got a gift can have it brought out of them. People like me are just facilitators. I believe with mediumship, it's the spirit people, our own guides, workers, teams of people. They're the ones who actually develop us and teach us. But people like me can facilitate that and draw out the best of them. And it's more usually when people are wanting to develop their gifts, it's the need to have confidence in their own abilities. So people like me, in the right environment, with kind, like-minded people, genuinely spiritual people, not people in competition with each other. Then if you're safe, if you feel safe, your gifts will naturally unfold.
And if there's one thing that you would like to leave, one word of wisdom, what would you suggest?
Golly gosh, just be yourself. And to do with your own mediumship, don't let anybody tell you how to do it or how not to. I'm a little afraid at the moment, and I've said it for some time, if we're not careful, we could train natural mediumship out of people. We do not want everybody to be a clone of everybody else. The gift that you are is the gift that God gave you. The gift that you become is your gift to God.
Perfect. Val, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Val Williams. And that was one of our mediums. If you've got any questions that you would like to ask for any of our future mediums, do get in touch. Let us know and see if we can get some of these answers sorted out for you as well. I'm Dinah Luke, and thanks for sharing this time with me.